from one.
5-0. It finishes England top of Group K. They have qualified for the 2026 World Cup. Nedum Onuoha is here to join us. Before we ask him if it is coming home, can we ask if it was another good performance under Tuchel for you, Nedum?
Yeah, I think it was. I think as you look back to the end of last season, that friendly defeat to Senegal, there were probably a few question marks asked about the team. You know, the energy was a bit low. They weren't performing to their absolute best. But since then, obviously outside of the political side of things in terms of who he's picking with Bellingham's, Foden's and so on, the team's performed really, really well. You know, it's another game without conceding a goal. And even though that group itself now looks like it's a very easy group for England, I think they've made it easy. I think they've been ruthless, they've been clinical with their finishing, very solid with the defending. And they don't really offer the opposition a ton of encouragement either. So yeah, it's been very, very impressive. And as you say, Kay, it is officially coming home because now they're on their way to the World Cup.
Yeah, I don't know why you were getting so upset, Shaka, about
It's coming
the
home.
suggestion that it's coming home.
Because they're on the way to the World Cup. Is that what Nedum just said? Now that they're there, it's decided. Oh, boy.
But obviously, Nedum just mentioned the political side of things there. They've done it without the big names, some of the big names.
Some of the big names. Listen, but to that point, it's Latvia. And while, yes, this group could have gone a whole lot differently, truthfully, I don't think anybody's surprised to see England sitting top of this group as comfortably as they are. Latvia did have a couple of opportunities. Pickford did have to make a couple of saves himself. But other than that, this really was smooth sailing for England. They had no real issue with dispatching of Latvia.
Don't ask me to get excited about England because they beat Latvia 5-0.
It's Latvia.
Tuchel has talked about team spirit in this camp. How important is it?
Well, it is, but you're not going to find out how good your team spirit is until you actually have everybody that is supposed to be part of this squad. And so whatever is it that is going on between Tuchel and Jude Bellingham is one of the best players in England. He should be part of this national team, and eventually he will be. And so that needs to be addressed, that needs to be put out there, and whatever differences there are, those things need to be put aside so that England can focus on being one of the best teams in the world. Talent-wise, the talent level of England is there close to the top. Not at the quite best level just yet, but they're quite close to the top. And part of that reason is because you have players like Jude Bellingham available. So he needs to be on the field. Phil Foden needs to be on the field. If they're at their best, they elevate England to a point to where maybe you can have the discussion of actually coming home. You can have the discussion of them being at the level of Spain, at the level of France, at the level of Argentina. We can have that conversation, but you need your best players available, and indeed you need team spirit, and indeed you need a good relationship between the coach and the player. So these are things that you're going to have to navigate because, oh, by the way, the World Cup is not until next June. We are October. There's a lot of things that need to happen from here till then. A lot of that has to do with how indeed you build this chemistry. And if indeed you do, and you have this good of players, and you have this good of level, you should be in the conversation among teams that is going to make a difference in the knockout stage of the competition.
Do you agree with Ale, Nedum?
Yeah, I would say so. And I think the thing that's probably a bit different in this instance is the fact that Thomas Tuchel is still relatively new in his position as England manager. So he's getting a look at people for the first time. You know, he can't say, for example, go back to his experiences in the last Euros and see how the camp was because he wasn't there. You know, that wasn't his England side as such. So he's making these decisions at this moment in time, but he'll very much understand that when it comes down to winning a World Cup, sometimes maybe you need more of a maverick type player because to qualify, you know, all these pieces that England have, it's very, very good. They've got depth, it feels everywhere. And, you know, you mentioned Phil Foden, you've mentioned Jude Bellingham, but there's also the likes of Cole Palmer, you know, and a few others to come back into that side potentially. So he's going to have a ton of options, but he's got to make sure that the balance is right. I think in these 10-day trips that he's had in October, in September, you know, the ones in the summer, he's gotten a feel for the personalities, but then also the ability. And the key is sort of trying to find the level that, you know, he wants within that space, within the camp. And if you believe somebody's going to be negative and take away from it, I think in some ways you'd probably be right to say not put them in the squad. But I think someone like a Jude Bellingham and those others, if those accusations are true that maybe they are a bit disruptive, I bet all that stuff changes when you're playing at the largest scene in world football. You know, it is the World Cup, playing for your country. So I think sometimes you sort of bridge some of those issues that you have with other people and just do everything you can to try and be successful and, you know, leave a sort of mark in history.
Can I ask a question to Nedum? He's a man who probably has more information on this than I do. What are the issues with Jude Bellingham? What are the accusations? What is it so terrible by Jude Bellingham that makes him a troublesome figure as part of this English national team?
To be honest, I've heard certain things, but I can't say that anything is for sure. But I think as you look back to, say, the Euros in the summer, there were sort of media duties, for example, whereby a lot of the other players are having to share it out, the senior players. You're going to do this, going to do that, going to do whatever. But say, I don't think Jude Bellingham did a lot of that, if any at all. So I think to use that as sort of the way to describe the overall feeling, if everybody's pulling in the same direction, but somebody can still do something themselves, then that creates a separation. I think when people go away for long periods of time, as Ali knows, as Shaka knows, you know, you're going away for 10 days with teammates, not with your best friends. So at some point, you know, things might rub you up the wrong sort of way. And when it ends up being, say, a month away, like I'm going to tend to do, say, at a European Championships or a World Cup, then some of those little things where people are perhaps seeing things in a different light, I think they can cause an issue, especially when somebody is as talented as he is, and he has those moments, as we saw in the last Euros. But again, these are just things that I've heard. It's not something that's there for definite, but he does feel different to the rest of that squad. And in some ways, that's probably what makes him so great. But can they find a way to bring everybody together so that, you know, the collective is pulling to a point to where, you know, they believe they can win a World Cup?
Okay. The headlines will be about Cristiano Ronaldo becoming the all-time leading goal scorer in World Cup qualifying. 41 goals in 51 matches. And remember, this is at 40 years of old. 40 years of age.
No.
Or old.
That too. That
too.
Good either.
Nedum, he's older than you and he's still playing and he's getting all these records.
Why are you making sound like that?
Wow.
Yeah, to be honest, okay, he's also Cristiano Ronaldo, so you can't really shame me with him because essentially everyone's feeling the same shame. Let's be very, very honest about that. You know, and as you see that record there, it's remarkable. I think through all his time playing for Portugal, there's so much to be said about availability, but that sort of clinical nature that he has, the finishing, the understanding, the movement, the ability to step up in big moments, and not necessarily saying that's what today was, but the fact is he's doing this for his national side to give them the best chance to make it to a World Cup and to be able to perform. And I'll be honest as well, 3 years ago when he was in Qatar, and there was all the talk about the issue of United, him falling out with the manager, that interview that he did behind United's back and so on. It felt like this was the crisis, this was the moment for Ronaldo basically falling off the face of the earth. But instead, here we are 3 years later, and there's every chance and every belief that he'll be playing at the World Cup next summer. And if Portugal are to be successful, he'll be a significant part of that. So it's truly amazing. It's crazy to think how successful this guy's been. And the fact is that, you know, from 40 years of age, he's still an incredible player. I think some of the goals he scored from 30 to 40 probably is more than some of the players we think are some of the best strikers in the history of like football anyway. He's a remarkable player, remarkable talent, so much drive, so much energy, so much understanding. And he's still, to this day, one of the toughest people to bet against because he will always have a moment.
Yeah, absolutely brilliant stats as always from Cristiano Ronaldo. As for Portugal on the night, though, they're going to be disappointed with that goal conceded.
Yeah, and there are a couple of things about Portugal today that I didn't quite understand. And the first goal by Attila Szalai, it's a corner kick. How in a matchup you think, I'll tell you what we're going to do, huh? We're going to have Bernardo Silva pick up their tallest, strongest guy at the back post. This is when coaching makes a difference. This is when preparation makes a difference. How in the world do you put forth on the board, you write it down and you say, Attila Szalai will be picked up by Bernardo Silva at the back post. And you're okay with that. I'll tell you what's going to happen. Diogo Costa doesn't get to the ball. There's only one person that's going to win that header, and that is Attila Szalai. And then you're winning the game if you're Portugal. You're carrying the momentum of the game. You're controlling the game. And then you got a little conservative. And then the possession was not nearly as clean as it was over the course of 90 minutes. You allow Hungary to get back into the match, a lesser team than that in Hungary that doesn't quite have the tools to really threaten Portugal as long as you have possession of the ball, as long as you control the pace of the game. They allow Hungary to control the pace late, and then Hungary started pushing forward, and then they hit the crossbar, and then they scored a goal. And you kind of go, right, Portugal should be in the conversation with Spain, with France, with England. They should be among those teams coming from Europe that should be among the favorites to be part of that conversation and being one of those teams that could have a chance of winning the whole thing. And then you see ends of games like this and you go, well, maybe not. Maybe not. And then those are questions that you have to ask about Roberto Martinez and that you have to ask about, is the evolution of this national team and the talent level that is available to this coach matching the performances? I suppose if they make it to the World Cup as we expect them that they will, and there's no doubt that they're going to do so, that yeah, sure, Roberto Martinez is the answer. But you see ends of game like this one and you kind of go, this team could be and should be better.
How confident are you for Portugal's chances in the World Cup, should they go on and make it?
To win it? Oh, no.
Or to go how far?
I think if Portugal get to a semi-final, that is a very successful tournament for them. I don't think Portugal are among the best 4 teams in the world. The draw may be kind to them, and you see how things kind of play off, especially with this expanded format. But I echo a lot of the concerns that Ali just expressed, and particularly around Roberto Martinez. As a coach, what about Roberto Martinez's time with Belgium, with a far more talented squad than he has with Portugal right now? They got to a semi-final themselves. Did they lose the 3rd and 4th place game? That was as good as you got from Belgium's golden generation, a team that sat top of FIFA rankings for eons, it felt like, but yet failed to deliver. Now with a team not as talented, with an aging striker, while yes, we are absolutely right to sing Cristiano Ronaldo's praises, at the higher end of world football, is Cristiano Ronaldo the striker that you rely on? In qualifiers, yes, I don't think there's any question about that. But at the World Cup, in the knockout stages, is he the guy you rely on to pull you out of the fire? As you said, I'm not so certain that he's still that person. So kind of given some of those, let's call them deficiencies of Portugal, managerial, and certainly in terms of personnel, if they get to the semi-final, I'll be surprised, and they should celebrate.
Never mind, Italy don't mind going through the playoffs to try. Oh no, I better stop there.
Wait a minute. What?
Anyway,
boy,
that's how things are looking right now. I think Nedum had his eye on this game today. Italy, as it stands right now, in the runner-up spot. It looks as though it is going to be the playoffs again for them, Nedum.
Yes, it does, and it was nice that you sort of put a little Easter egg in there for their recent history, and it is going to be an element of discomfort in there. I think as we look at this Italian side and we know some of those names, we have their rich history, we've seen them be very good on the continental stage, we're in the Euros not too long ago, but then could this really be the 3rd World Cup in a row that they don't qualify for? That just seems crazy in itself, but unfortunately that's where Italian football has been in some of these moments. But I think just for them having the opportunity to be able to make it into that next stage, I think that's the thing that's going to be most important. And I'm sure later on in the show we're going to talk about other teams that may be scrapping for their lives through the playoff system. But yeah, for Italy, for now, they have a chance. I'm sure today's game was a strange one with a half-empty stadium, the nature of the opposition and so on. But the fact is they did what they needed to do, and they'll still believe that they can handle business further down the road. And just as long as you make your way to the World Cup, how you get in the end doesn't really matter as long as you've got a chance to try and be successful.
Good enough to make it through the playoffs this time?
Maybe, but even if they do that, when you see, and it's a conversation that we've had throughout this international break, you break down France, you break down Spain, you break down even Portugal that we just talked about, England for that matter, Argentina if you want to go on the other side of the world. And you then compare that to what Italy has available, and Italy is just not on the same level. Not in terms of talent, not in terms of team structure, not in terms of a team that can actually threaten to do something significant in the competition. Now, before this collapse of Italy in World Cup qualifying over the last 2 World Cup cycles, we always thought of Italy as a team coming into the competition that would be among the favorites and they would be in the conversation. You know how Italy's going to do it. They're not going to convince, but they're going to advance. They're going to be thereabouts, and they're going to find themselves in a semifinal. That's what we thought of Italy. This team, even months ahead of the World Cup, I can tell you, semifinal, no chance. I just don't see the talent level. And in order to advance in a competition like the World Cup, not only do you have to have the talent level and the personality, you have to have an element of good fortune. I think Italy are missing a bunch of this stuff altogether, and it just feels like right now they should just focus on how are we going to get through this playoffs, and then we'll talk about any sort of conversation regarding the World Cup.
Just 2 games away from qualifying without conceding as well. That's 29 competitive matches, unbeaten as it stands right now. Spain, it goes without saying really, but they are looking good, Shaq.
Absolutely. I think going into the tournament, Spain would probably be most people's favourites. Probably right now, the only threats to that would be Argentina if Lionel Messi continues to do Lionel Messi stuff, and France if they hit their strides. But in terms of talent, not just talent, but the depth of talent that Spain has, the football that they're playing, it's hard to make an argument for anyone else. And I know a couple of days ago I was saying France, I think, have it. That is kind of on Kylian Mbappe's good form, on his standing in the world game. But you look at Spain throughout, while it may not have that standout mercurial star that France does in Kylian Mbappe, everywhere else on the park, they are as good as it comes in world football. And should it continue? And the thing is, you don't even have to avoid injury. That squad is so deep, you can't even have the argument that, well, if this one goes down or somebody else goes down, they're just so deep everywhere.
Can Lamine be a mercurial star?
He absolutely can be. But Spain are not, to that point, Spain are not built that way. Where France are fully reliant on Kylian Mbappe doing Kylian Mbappe in World Cup stuff. France could go without. Spain could go without. Even a Yamal. That's the way they play is just different from how France plays, how France is set up.
I would just say this because I would be remiss if I didn't mention Pedri. There's nobody, and I'd argue this with anybody, there's nobody in the world playing at a higher level individually currently than Pedri is playing his position. The game is not that easy, and certainly not as easy as he makes it seem or he makes it look. He is 1-2 steps ahead of everybody when it comes to decision making. He knows exactly where the next pass is going to go. He knows exactly where the next touch is going to be. The first 20 minutes today in the match against Bulgaria, he was untouchable and had an opportunity to score, hits it off the crossbar after a play that he built in a little give and go action. Had he scored that, he might as well just walk and go home because there's just nothing else he could do in this match to outdo what he had already done. Pedri is playing at a tremendously high level. And so to your point, Shaq, while we can focus on Lamine Yamal or we can focus on Kylian Mbappe or we can focus on whoever the mercurial star may be, right now, the star for Spain, and I think was appreciated by the fans in Valladolid today, is indeed Pedri. And the level in which he's playing. He is outstanding. We know that he's outstanding. We have documented that time and time again. But I think he's actually even improving his game and taking it to a level where he is a superstar. Unassuming superstar, but a superstar nonetheless.
Yeah. They have quite the injury list at the moment. The good news for them is that Lamine Yamal is back in training as of Monday, recovering from that recurring groin issue. His minutes will obviously be managed carefully. The bad news, though, is that Robert Lewandowski has suffered a thigh tear, a muscle tear in his thigh, so there's an uncertain recovery time there. Reports suggesting it could be 4 to 6 weeks, meaning he would miss El Clasico. Dani Olmo also out with a muscular injury in his left calf. Reports locally state that it will be 2 to 3 weeks that he's out, so he would also be a major doubt for El Clasico. So, Nedum, good time for Marcus Rashford to step up and shine for Barca.
Yeah, you could say that. I don't know if he can cover all those positions, but yeah, the opportunity's there. And I think that's the thing that's going to be key. As we saw him go across to Barcelona, I think for some there was an excitement about the potential that he had, but you also wondered, well, how would he fit into this team? Well, it looks like he's going to fit into the team because certain people are going to be unavailable. And I think for him, getting a chance to play in a game of that size, for the potential and star power that he has, you'd hope that he'd be looking forward to it and sort of grasp it with two hands. I think you are unfortunate with having that many players injured for such a big game and such an important part of the season, relatively speaking. But yes, it's next player up, and Barcelona do have some players who can step in and they'll potentially find a way to be competitive in that match. But yeah, I'll be very interested to see if Rashford does stay fit and stay available for that, how he performs. Expectation and the intensity of that game itself might be something he's never felt before.
Ferran Torres also left the camp, the Spanish national team camp, with a muscle overload. whatever that means. But he left the camp with a muscle overload. So, yeah, you start looking around, you kind of go, what seemed to be surplus to requirements when they were going after Marcus Rashford, now it's like, actually, Marcus, you're the only one available. So, Marcus, you want to play? You want to play, Marcus?
He showed to be finding his feet, though, in this Barcelona squad, Ale.
Yeah, but it really doesn't matter. Right now, he's the only one that can play. Whether he had been given signs or not, completely irrelevant. He's the only one that's healthy and can actually get on the field. Rafinha injured. Ferran Torres, muscle overload.
Yeah.
Robert Lewandowski, muscle tear. Lamine Yamal just coming back from a groin injury. So, yeah, it is Marcus and nobody else.
Obviously, they had that loss to Sevilla before the international break. They need a win when they return to action this weekend against Girona.
Absolutely. Listen, I think that this race will be tighter than any we've seen for some time. Real Madrid, given their form, even when they've had little hiccups themselves, I think they're showing under Xabi Alonso that things are coming much better for them. They're playing good football. Kylian Mbappe in the form of his life, all of a sudden there's an understanding with Vinicius Jr. And you cannot give Real Madrid a head start. You cannot allow them to put in any kind of distance between you and them, especially with the Clasico to come in a couple of weeks' time. So they have to keep the pressure on. They have to get a result here, especially kind of given some of the frailties that Sevilla took full advantage of.
To your point, Shaq, while we can talk about the front line of Barcelona, I have no questions that Barcelona is going to score goals. That is not what I think they have an issue. It's the other side of the field. So regardless of who's available or not available in the front line, of course they would want all of these players to be available, but that's not the case. What's going on in the back? Mm-hmm. What's going on in the midfield? What's going on in the pressure on the ball? What's going on with the high line? Those are the things that they need to figure out, and they haven't had time to actually work on it because people have gone to their national teams, and Hansi Flick is kind of like, I wish I had the time. Well, you don't. And now you show up and you got to play against Girona. If you don't get a result against Girona, next week is El Clásico. Ay, mamá.
Stay up to date with everything to do with La Liga right here on ESPN Plus. Barcelona in action against Girona on Saturday, looking to bounce back from that loss against Sevilla. You'll also be able to see an alternative Madrid derby as Getafe take on Real Madrid on Sunday. Atleti also wrapping things up on Saturday against Osasuna. So that's how Group C finishes. Nigeria finishing in there, up in second spot there. But as mentioned, they are one of the best second place group teams now because of the goal difference, pushing out Burkina Faso in that table. Colin Udo is here joining us on what is a big day. Nedum Onuoha is still with us. Colin, have you got something to do with that fourth important goal for Nigeria? And if so, can you tell us what it is?
Was that from me or from Nedum?
That's for you, Colin, because I hear you played a part in this.
Well, that goal was really important, but it did look for some minutes there that the players just were not aware that they needed a fourth goal, and I saw the goalkeeper kind of wasting time a little bit. So, I mean, I don't know if they knew or not, but I just kind of texted somebody on the bench. I said, "Hey, look, you know what? Please tell these guys that we need a fourth goal, and let's see how what happens." And so, whether that helped or not, I can't say, but it needed to be done, and it got done. We got the fourth goal, and in the end, that single goal was enough to get the Super Eagles to edge out Burkina Faso and move on to the playoffs.
Okay. All right. If Colin,
what is that for?
If Colin is going to take credit for this, he's also going to have to take responsibility for the fact that a couple of days ago he said, I don't think Nigeria are going to do it. I don't believe that Nigeria are going to do it. I think Nigeria are going to come up short. That's what Colin told us a couple of days ago. Now he's taking credit for sending a text message?
Well, the reason the players didn't know they needed that goal is because they watched FC the other day when Colin was on.
Okay.
And everybody was confused. Nobody knew what was going on.
After Colin's explanation?
Yeah, that's right.
Okay,
yeah, nobody knew what to do.
Well, that might be a factor, but yeah, I mean, to be honest, I did not believe that they were going to make it. And in fairness, I was speaking to the NFF president after the game, and he said he was there at halftime in the dressing room, and he told them that he told Osimhen and the other that they needed to score 4 goals to make it through. So I think maybe he could have forgotten, but a little bit of reminding that doesn't hurt anyone. I'm not taking the credit by any means. But look, in all honesty, I did not think Nigeria were going to make it. And look at it. They've gone through this entire qualifiers. They haven't scored more than 2 goals. They've drawn 3 games at home before this. And then they come out today and they play like the house is on fire, which is exactly what they needed. So right now, I think they're in a good position to get all the way. If you look at the fixtures now, they play against Gabon in the playoffs, and then Cameroon play against the DRC. The winners of those games get to play against each other, and whoever wins that game goes to the Intercontinental Playoff, where they get to play against teams from OFC, CONCACAF, and it's probably going to be Jamaica and Panama there, and then of course there's going to be Bolivia. So it's a long way round. I'm still not sure they're going to make it all the way, but I'm going to start believing again.
Oh, okay. Well, that's a change in thought.
They played better when you didn't believe.
Okay, so maybe I should start believing again.
Nedum, did you always believe, and did you play any part in Nigeria giving themselves a lifeline today?
I can confirm that I was like Colin and I didn't believe it at all. And if anything, I was trying to block all the numbers of my Ghanaian friends and other people from West Africa, just the continent of Africa in general, because the grief we were going to receive for not qualifying in a 48-team tournament was going to be crazy. And it's not to say that they've guaranteed their qualification now, but at least the hope is there. And I think it's a lesson, sometimes it's better to be lucky than to be good. But also, I think the stories that Colin's telling there for himself and the NFF president, I mean, could you imagine like the lead in the FA coming down to the dressing room for England saying, "Hey guys, you need to score more goals," or somebody say, "I'm going to text somebody on the bench," and it goes through. Like, these are all things that almost make African football at times one of the best things and one of the craziest things that you can imagine. But the fact is, as I say, they found a way to be in the playoff, which is huge. But as you guys have said, there's still so much football left to go. But ultimately, if you end up being the team that's lucky enough to be able to do it, then you can worry about the journey once you get there. Just try and celebrate the moment. But yeah, I wish it didn't need to be this way, because I think for me, a team like Nigeria, who were in the final of African nations not too long ago, for them to end up drawing half of their games in a qualifying campaign to sides who you would expect them to beat, I think it's hugely disappointing. But thankfully, the story is not over yet, even though some people would probably argue that it should be.
No, not for Nigeria.
Can we give a shout out to Victor Osimhen, a player that would have been criticized as one of the players, big name players representing Nigeria. And in a game like this, whether Colin was involved or not, whether the Federation president was involved or not, they needed goals. And who do you look to? Well, it has to be Osimhen. He scores a hat trick. That is big-time players delivering in big-time moments. Where the pressure is on, he scores a hat-trick. Victor Osimhen, big time.
FC Extra Time, Victor Osimhen's hat-trick, or Colin Udo's text, which was more important?
Okay, well.
Victor Osimhen, no doubt about it. Victor Osimhen, all day, every day.
Colin, on the other side of things, great day for South Africa, bad day for Benin. Talk us through both of those teams and how they'll be feeling now.
Yeah, well, look, the only team in this group that had things in their own hands and not have to depend on anyone was Benin. All they had to do was win in Nigeria, but that was always going to be a tall task, for them to come to Nigeria and win. South Africa were in the best position because even though they had to depend on Nigeria to beat Benin for them to get through, they know all they have to do was win at home, and Nigeria would do the job because Nigeria still had everything to play for to get to the playoff places. So I guess South Africa were in the best possible position because Nigeria and Benin would cancel each other out, and then they could advance. And they did their job. I mean, they got there, scored 3 goals, and they made it through to the World Cup finals for the first time since they hosted it in 2010. And I think, with the way this group has gone, this has been the worst group in African qualifying. Nigeria slipped up, South Africa slipped up, Benin took advantage. So I think that for South Africa, it's joy for them returning to the World Cup. For Benin, they were punching above their weight. I sat down with Gennaro Roy, their coach, the night before the game, and we talked a lot about this. And he said, "Look, these boys have done a great job. They've punched above their weight. They never expected to be where they were. They started the qualifiers with 2 road games, and they're ending it with 2 road games. So they are hoping that they can get the result and qualify. But if they don't, they would have done something that has never been done before in Benin football. And that's exactly what they've done. They've energized people in Benin Republic. And who knows, this is something that they might use as a foundation to do even greater things in the future."
Okay, Colin, thanks for being with us. It is now time to believe, okay? That's Group B. That's how things stand there. And more teams securing their spot in next year's World Cup.
Hey, oh, it's a party. We're not invited.
Colin, talk to us about Senegal and the Ivory Coast securing the deal.
Oh, yeah. I mean, that Senegal team is almost unfair. I mean, like, they're stacked from top to bottom. You look at that team and you think, how are they not even going to be, like, in the running to win the World Cup? They're that good. I mean, and they've got so many great players. So I have every confidence in Senegal. I'm happy they qualified, did so in some style. And, you know, I guess my expectation is that if you look at the African teams going to the World Cup, Senegal are going to be there or thereabouts in terms of teams that are going to be making a splash over there. Ivory Coast are in a similar position, not as strong on a man-to-man basis as Senegal, but they've coasted practically through these qualifiers and shown that they also have what it takes to make a big splash at the World Cup. So some really, really good teams going in there for Africa: Senegal, Ivory Coast, Egypt. That's some really, really stacked teams going there.
Yeah, brilliant.
Colin just said that Senegal is going to win the World Up. That's what I heard there.
Yeah, that's
I said they're the running.
that's kind of how I heard it too.
Well, Colin, we'll definitely have you back to talk about those groups. We obviously all need to know you to explain it for us, how it's all going to work from here on out with what's left and what remains of CAF qualifying. We wait with bated breath. Colin, thank you so much for explaining everything that's gone on today.
Thanks for having me.
There we go.
Oh, let me see. Let me look.
Worry not. Brazil are in the World Cup.
Still time, Ali. Still time.
No.
Saudi Arabia and Qatar.
Yeah, we're not in it.
Will be heading
Still
to the World Cup. No, Venezuela.
Okay, what about Trinidad? Is Trinidad there?
Still time. Still time.
Still time, at least for one of you. And yes, that's how things are looking for the
relaxing when over there.
The USA and Australia.
Your favorite country, Uzbekistan.
Well, you know,
The
was it
USA
ever in
and
doubt?
Australia, both there. Obviously, USA playing in a friendly against Australia this evening. It was an improved showing from them by all accounts against Ecuador on Friday. What are you looking at for tonight, Ali?
Well, backing up the performance. Following this momentum, continuing this momentum and follow up a good performance and actually show that you can be consistent with the way that you play and the way that you approach the match. Now, Australia is coming from beating Canada in Canada 1-0 now. To be fair, Canada carried most of that game and Australia were fortunate to win the game. So I'm not quite sure how much of a test this is. I think Australia will be difficult at times to break down. And so I'm going to focus on one player. The one player that I thought was outstanding against Ecuador and that really stood out for me was Folarin Balogun. There is a lot of conversation as to who the number 9 is going to be for this team. And we've had lists and full screens and we've had names and we've broken it down and we said this guy, that guy, that guy. And the reason we were having those conversations is because nobody had actually stepped forward and said, I am the guy. The performance by Balogun against Ecuador actually pointed him in the right direction of saying, Folarin Balogun, I am the guy. You don't need to look any further. You don't need to look over there. You don't need to look over there. I'm here. I'm the guy. I need to see more of that from Balogun, and I need to see more of that from the United States. The combinations with Malik Tillman, the combinations from Weston McKennie, who looks, I would also say Weston McKennie looks like he is fit, like he is in shape, and that hasn't been the case for a while. So maybe the fact that he was left out of some call-ups was the reminder that, bro, if you're going to come to the national team, at the very least you have to be fit. That was the case for Weston McKennie in the game against Ecuador. All I'm asking from the United States is follow up the performance that you had against Ecuador, maintain the momentum, and continue to build on that.
Would you echo that, Shaka?
Absolutely. Listen, I think that this has, well, the Ecuador performance is probably as good a performance as we've seen from them. Certainly this version of the United States for quite some time. And I take the Gold Cup apart. I am also with Ali on Balogun. No one has staked a claim. I thought that the Ecuador game was Balogun's best performance in a US shirt. I could have quite easily have made the argument that I thought Haji Wright had played better for the US than Balogun had. Yet Balogun stepped up with that performance and a nice partnership, as Ali mentioned, with Malik Tillman. I feel that would be the fulcrum to so much of the good version of the US. There's still other issues for them to sort out. They're still not quite sure who's better in goal, whether it's Tin or Fries. There are other issues to sort out defensively. But that striker position has been a problem position for them for many a year. That seems to be sorting itself out now. Balogun has to keep hold. I think it's a big game for, and I take Ali's point with Australia and Canada kind of playing better, but the US has to start to build momentum. They have to start to put some of the shenanigans of the summer behind them. They have to build momentum going, and I know we're a long way away from the tournament, but this is a moment for them to stake a claim, to make that claim against a team that just beat Canada in this very window. This is a big moment for them. It's a big moment for Pochettino as well, because while we're focusing on the 11 that crossed the white line, I think Pochettino, similarly, there are a lot of questions around him, around his management of the team, the players, everything about US men's national team, that he needs this performance as good as any, and then give him some distance to sort things out between now and the next international window in November.
And this attention of Pochettino, he puts on himself when he puts stuff out there in social media and in culture.
Over strategy.
Culture over strategy, or eat strategy for breakfast. Okay. Ooh. What happens if you don't win against Australia? If you don't play well, is the culture gone? Did the culture disappear in one match? You put this attention on yourself, then you're confident enough to actually take on the responsibility of actually performing well when it matters. And until we get to the World Cup, this game against Australia matters for the United States and should matter for Pochettino, should matter for these players. Build on the momentum. Continue a path forward. You need all this positive energy building up to the World Cup. I think it's an important match, to Shaka's point.
Yeah. Welcome into the latest edition of Extra Time with Ale, with Shaka, and with Nedum. We need to tell you all that Dan Thomas had his surgery today.
Hey.
He's come through it like a champion, according to the doctor. He's been in surgery all day. He's now in recovery. We know you all want an update on this. He's doing well. Obviously, a long recovery ahead of him. So we're sending all our love out to Dan and his family. But Dan
should move the whole show to the hospital.
Yeah, absolutely.
That would be great.
Absolutely.
That would be great.
Do it
Dan, we love you.
right there.
100%.
Right there, bedside.
Also, good news for the Moreno family today.
Why is that?
I heard there was a goal from
was there?
Jr.
Oh,
Yes! Oh! Look at it. Look at the touch. And then the swivel. And then the finish! And then the finish!
Man.
And then the finish. We could work on the celebration though. But the finish!
That is not Moreno range,
Well,
though.
it
That's
is not.
10 yards too far to be Moreno range.
About the technique of the short hook.
Wow.
Oh, okay, Alejandro.
Dad never did
My
that.
earpiece. That was great. I loved seeing it. My earpiece keeps falling out. Sorry.
Okay, well, it was fantastic. Wofford College, a big game against Mercer University. We don't want to actually update what the final score was. Not important. The important thing is that the important thing is that
Now I'm gonna have to look it up.
the important thing is that Alejandro scored, which then means he's got his seat back for Thanksgiving. Pedri, you're out. Alejandro, you can come home.
That's some going, especially with Pedri playing how he is.
Yes,
Oh,
yes,
man,
Pedri.
Some going.
Pedri, fuera. Ciao.
He
Ciao,
couldn't
Pedri.
stop talking
Alejandro, welcome home,
Stop
buddy.
talking about Pedri today. We were talking about Africa qualifying, and he's talking about Pedri
Yes,
still.
absolutely.
Okay.
All right, the extra time questions are printed a little funky, but we'll try, okay?
All right.
We're making
All right.
excuses already.
Yeah, boy.
For Ale, as a striker in your prime, which of these strikers would you start, bench, and drop to be your strike partner in their prime? Luis Suarez, Karim Benzema, or Sergio Aguero?
Okay, to be my strike partner. So that's an important.
Your strike
yes.
partner.
So that's an important aspect here, because it would be a different order if I was just picking who I thought was the best striker in their prime of those three. To be my strike partner, I would say Karim Benzema.
Yeah.
And the reason is he could do a lot of the underneath work, which he was happy to do anyways, which then clears the way for me to get into the 18-yard box and tap in, baby. So Luis Suarez and Sergio Aguero would actually get on my way, because we would try to be doing the same thing. I would say Karim Benzema start, it's Karim Benzema bench, Karim Benzema sell. I play with Karim Benzema. The other guys, as much as I would have loved to have played with them, we would have been trying to do the same things.
All right. Next question. Nedum. As a defender, do you agree with Craig's view that the standard of defending in the Premier League has diminished over the years? He attributes this to why Haaland's goal-to-match ratio is so much higher than past Premier League strikers?
No, I couldn't disagree anymore, to be honest. And I think the way that I will sort of find a way to describe it is from back when. I think there's a sense of nostalgia and you're thinking about the very best version of what football was, but you're forgetting about everybody else. And I think in regards to that as well, I think the way that teams sort of try and defend against you now, there's more pressure being put on you from higher up. So there's this whole nature of like really deep organised defending, and teams who are very, very good and comfortable sort of working a low block and suffering as well. You know, prime examples like a team like Crystal Palace, who defensively don't concede a ton of goals. But if you look at all the individuals within that team, obviously apart from Chris Richards, you know, the guy himself, like all those individuals aren't, say, of the highest sort of like status as the players that Craig was talking about previously. I would disagree with that. I think a lot of defenders now are more athletic. I think they understand the physicality that needs to be there. I think they've got a different sense of reading the game because there's more sort of like analysis, studying the opposition. So yeah, I don't agree with it at all, to be honest. And I think Haaland essentially is a freak playing for a side who, you know, at times can really break convention and score a ton of goals as well.
Fair enough.
Yeah, I think defending has changed for fairly obvious reasons. That being said, I think Haaland scores goals whenever. In all honesty, you look at the goal he scored, was it against Brentford, where he just bullies the centre back rather simply. I see him doing that anywhere at any time. So you could try to make the argument that defending has diminished, but I don't think that takes away from how good Erling Haaland is or how many goals he would have scored.
One of these graphics up again about more goals per game in the 2020s. Nedum's tutting.
Better in the 50s though. Better in the 50s though. You know what I mean?
That was peak football back in the 50s.
Just look at the top elsewhere.
Yes. Honestly, we've had some mileage out of this topic.
Yeah, well, we are.
And what poor intern did we put into figuring out the goal averages in the 1950s?
The goals in the 1950s and the 1960s.
Well, honestly.
Ah, boy.
We have a dedicated stats team here, and AI. Go on, Nedum.
Okay, with those stats, like, though that data is really interesting because it's how you want to interpret it. So as a consequence, you see that like the goals per game ratio has gone up by 0.2. You're talking about literally 2 goals extra per game week. Every weekend, 2 extra goals. But yeah, of course, that means the defending's far worse now in this 10 years as opposed to the previous decade. Like, I think people don't really understand that side of things, and I think there's this big change, big sweeping issues and so on. But to go to the point that you were making, I was making and so on, Erling Haaland is a freak. And if defending was really, really bad, everybody would be scoring 30 goals a season. But we still only see 1, maybe 2 players do it every season, which is essentially what it's been throughout the history of the Premier League anyway.
Ale, will Rashford take advantage of Lewandowski's injury at Barcelona?
Well, I don't think he'll play through the middle, if that's the question. I still think that Marcus Rashford will play on the left-hand side where he has been playing. There's an opportunity here for Marcus Rashford. I've been saying this all along. Had I been Barcelona, I would not have gone after Marcus Rashford. But they did, and now it seems like a really good decision because everybody else is injured. And you look at Marcus Rashford, he now has a chance to have a really long run in the starting lineup given the absences. Before, it was sort of kind of touch and go. Is he starting? Is he not starting? Rafinha, is he going to play? Is he not going to play? Rafinha being injured means Rashford gets an opportunity. Now, Rafinha is injured. Lewandowski is injured. Lamine Yamal just coming back from injury himself. And so it would suggest that Hansi Flick only has a few options in the attack. And those few options include Marcus Rashford down the left. So it's up to him. It really is up to him. But I would challenge Marcus Rashford, if I were Hansi Flick, I would challenge him to don't just be another player in this team. Be outstanding. You have the chance to have this fan base fall in love with you because you provide this team with something different, with a change of pace, with running over the top. Whenever we can get in behind, you can get in behind. You can be that guy. And they're looking for you to be that special player. Go ahead and be that player. Be outstanding so that this is not just because other people are injured. You are playing because you deserve to be on the field.
Okay. The boys had a great debate about Liverpool's 11 for this weekend's game against Manchester United. For United, is the goalkeeper choice a difficult one between Altay and Le Mans?
No, I think Amarimus kind of made mistake. Who's his number one? I don't think there's any debate about that. My thing about Le Mans is young goalkeeper, inexperienced, coming in very inexperienced, coming to a club like Manchester United with the expectations that come with that club, regardless of them not being in Europe this season. Every single mistake is highlighted. He's still learning his trade, and learning a trade, mistakes are a part of that. That's my concern with Le Mans. Certainly not whether he's going to start. I think Amorim has kind of made that perfectly clear at this point.
But if he's better than Altay, which he seems to be, although the sample size is small, but if he's better than the other guy, look, you can't hide him. Put him out there, and then whatever comes of it, comes of it. But you cannot continue to depend on the guy who's been making mistake after mistake after mistake.
Start, bench or drop Nedum Managers Edition. Potter, Russell Martin, Ange Postecoglou.
Oh, wow, car crash. I think in terms of stock in the English game right now, I think Graham Potter is probably going to be the one that would need to be sold. I think the opportunities he's had, maybe in a different world he does better, but they're really low. I think the Russell Martin failure will ban him from essentially getting a job in Scotland again. But he's also been a manager that's not really managed in the Premier League for that long as such. So I think he would be the one that would be on the bench, and Ange has to start because essentially, for now he's still technically in work. So yeah, Ange is the one who could potentially turn his time round at Forest, and he's got the chance to do it. Whereas the other two are just going to be watching him, hoping that maybe he loses his job.
All right, how many goals per game would Thierry Henry have if he played for Manchester City?
Oh boy.
Nathan, this is for you.
We've got some mileage out of this question. Throw on the car in reverse,
And
backed up a little bit, and now zooming up again.
Now we're in a cul-de-sac. We're in a traffic circle. We're in a roundabout.
Oh my, I was scraping that barrel.
Yeah. Do you know what? If only there was a time where you could see maybe Thierry Henry playing for Pep Guardiola's side. I just can't picture it at any point now. But yeah.
Here's another graphic for you, Nathan.
Obviously. Oh, thank you. I adore these graphics. Thierry Henry, what an incredible player, especially for that generation. The speed that he has. You could say that he was kind of built to be playing in this era as such. So I think his goal record would be better. But would it be the same in terms of him at times coming off that left-hand side? Maybe not. That's not necessarily the way that I sort of see him doing really well for Guardiola's side. But, one of the best to play in the Premier League, one of the best coaches to ever do it as well. He would have scored a lot more goals, but not necessarily to the point where it seems like it's joke numbers like, say, Messi and Ronaldo did when they were in La Liga at their absolute best.
Okay.
I'm pretty sure, and this may be controversial to some, but I'm pretty sure that our production department is trolling us. I'm pretty certain.
Still International Week. Like, what else can we do about?
They're doing this on purpose now.
Erling Haaland.
We worked every angle possible, including going as far back as the 1950s. 3.42.
If Haaland was a defender against Haaland, how many goals would Haaland score?
With Manchester City and Pep Guardiola.
Okay. Tune in tomorrow for more Erling Haaland questions. All right, last question. It's not Erling Haaland related or even striker related. Thoughts on Cape Verde Islands qualifying for the World Cup? They'll be the second smallest nation ever to compete.
I love it. I absolutely fantastic. And not through the playoffs. African qualifying is as difficult and as you could ask. And then you go back to the disallowed goal. Was that against Mali? I think it was. Had that stood in the previous game, they would have qualified. But then they get to come back home and beat Eswatini at home to qualify. I thought that was a perfect finish for them to do it in front of their own fans. 500,000 people at Cape Verde. That's a great story. I love it.
Yeah.
There's 500,000 people in the eastern side of Caracas, and we're not in the World Cup. Look, I don't want to make this about Venezuela, but I'll tell you this much. It's yet another country in which I'll say, Trinidad made it to a World Cup, we didn't. Cape Verde made it to a World Cup, we didn't.
The smallest ever nation, Iceland, made it to a World Cup.
Okay, look.
What's Iceland's population?
That was 2018, 350,000.
Okay.
All I'm saying is, I'm happy for Cape Verde, but it does absolutely nothing for me and my country and our disappointment.
How many people? What's the population of Venezuela?
It's more than 500,000. As I said, you got 500,000 people just on the eastern side of Caracas.
Never mind the World Cup, there's always Miss World.
And Miss Universe, actually. Miss Universe, we go above that.
Yeah, you do. Yeah, you do.
There you go.
Baseball,
That's the
we got good
trade-off.
baseball players, a lot of good baseball players right now in the
There you go.
playoffs.
Maybe you should put them in your World Cup squad.
That will do it for the ladies third.
Hey, that was funny, Shaq. That was funny. Why don't you hit a home run while you do it? Yay!